Hello, Thomas Westbrook here. Have you ever wondered, does it take faith to believe in science? When someone makes any kind of claim, your potential responses to said claim fall on a spectrum ranging from blind faith, accepting everything that they say without a shred of evidence, to rigorous scientific inquiry, performing experiments and testing and retesting the claims. Faith is the antithesis of science. Saying that it takes faith to believe in science is like saying that it takes booze to be sober. Let's examine briefly how science works. Most people are familiar with the scientific method. You observe some phenomenon, make a hypothesis, test your claims, revise or scrap them if they don't match the data, and test it again. But that's just scratching the surface. There's a reason that science is the best tool we have to discover how the universe works. And when you start comparing it to religion, the difference is striking. Religion starts with an emotionally charged assumption and works backwards from there, trying to prove the assumption while falling prey to confirmation bias. In other words, if it does test its assumptions, its focus is weighted towards the hits while ignoring the misses. They don't even try to hide their agenda. Take, for example, Answers in Genesis, the multi-million-dollar tax-free religious organization focused on promoting young Earth creationism. The same people who built a modern Noah's Ark to try to prove that the flood was for realsies. In plain view on their website is a statement of faith that all of their employees have to agree to, which blatantly states, and I quote, "By definition, no apparent, perceived, or claimed evidence in any field, including history and chronology, can be valid if it contradicts the scriptural record." Jesus! That's a little dishonest. They're not kidding either. The head of AIG debated Bill Nye, and here's how it went down.
What, if anything, would ever change your mind? Mr. Nye?
We would just need one piece of evidence. We would need the fossil that swam from one layer to another. We would need evidence that the universe is not expanding. We would need evidence that the stars appear to be far away, but they're not.
And no one's ever going to convince me that the Word of God is not true.
So you don't care about the truth? Science encourages doubt, but religion discourages doubt, even going so far as to call it sinful, because they don't want you to question. If something in religion doesn't match reality, you're told that God works in mysterious ways. Because science is an active living process, it's self-correcting. So while it's true that scientists make mistakes sometimes, it's the scientific method that finds and corrects those mistakes, pushing you closer to the truth. Creationists are quick to point out known scams from a century ago, like the Piltdown Man, which was a forged intermediary fossil comprised of bones of several different species meant to fool scientists. But what they don't tell you is that it was science that exposed it as a fraud. That scientists, some of whom were skeptical from the get-go, examined it closer because it was inconsistent with all of the real fossils we'd found. In other words, because scientists uncovered and thoroughly studied so many transitional fossils, the Piltdown Man stood out. They noticed it was inconsistent with the evolutionary path that all of these fossils pointed to. That's not a flaw in science. That's the kind of self-correcting mechanism that should be considered as one of science's crowning achievements, and all the more reason to trust it. Whereas there are at least 30 nails that various Catholic churches claim were used in the crucifixion of Christ. If that's not a forgery epidemic, then they really nailed the crap out of him. But religion will never uncover fact from fiction. It can't update itself because its doctrines are set in stone. Claiming to be unchangeable final revelation is the most surefire way to guarantee eventual obsolescence. Religious claims and fantastical miraculous stories are never replicable. But if a scientific study can't be replicated, it's thrown out. The most notable example of this was the Fleischmann-Pons experiment in 1989 that claimed to have discovered cold fusion. However, they nor anyone else was able to replicate the initial results in a satisfactory way. So as cool as it would be to have an abundant source of cheap energy like this, after much scrutiny, the scientific community had to disregard the initial reports and move on. There's a rigorous set of criteria in science, guidelines to make sure your outcome isn't skewed or corrupted. Observational studies normally have to have a random sample, and the sample of test subjects has to be big enough to rule out statistical anomalies. and they have to account for a margin of error. Clinical trials are usually double or triple blind studies with control groups. That means that one set of test subjects is given a placebo and the other receives the treatment. But both the patient, the doctor, and sometimes even the statistician are blind to who is receiving what until afterwards, because their knowledge of it during the experiment could potentially affect the end result. When publishing a study, it must be submitted to a respectable journal for peer review, in which other experts who've spent their life in that scientific field carefully comb through your results for mistakes. And because it's highly competitive, they want to find mistakes, which encourages everyone to be extremely accurate and careful in how they conduct their research. Proving a long-standing theory wrong and offering a replacement that fits all the evidence is how you win Nobel Prizes. People are literally encouraged with massive cash prizes to tear down and replace the foundations of science, if they can. Because science is constantly coming up with new tools and better instruments to make more accurate observations, when a long-standing theory in science is replaced, which is rare, it's replaced with something better and even more accurate and precise, making science more reliable the longer it's around. Religion is never tested like this. In fact, we're encouraged not to test it, but it declares itself to be accurate rather than relying on outside scrutiny and observation. No matter where you are in the world or how you've been brought up, science works consistently for everyone. The force of gravity operates the same for me as it does for you or a kid in Nairobi. Religion varies widely depending on what part of the world you're raised in and what superstitions your parents indoctrinated you with. Every God belief is different. They all disagree on what's right and wrong, where we came from, how to go to heaven, or if there's a heaven at all. It's shrouded in mystery, while science is transparent. Once we have fully formed and meticulously tested scientific theories in place, science is able to make predictions about the world. Predictions that actually pan out. Religion's just got failed prophecies. It makes no predictions about the state of reality that we didn't already know. Science, by definition, is evidence-based, and religion is faith-based. Science teaches curiosity, while religion trains you in credulity. The contrast is undeniably stark. Science is forensics of the universe, the best method we have to demystify, to unlock and assemble the puzzle pieces of the cosmos. Faith is a lazy cop-out, a safety blanket for those too scared or just unwilling to take the time to carefully study the cosmos using a framework that works. The fact that we can know things about the universe is a beautiful thing, but even better yet, is that we don't have to pitifully stoop to wishful thinking and blind, gullible faith. Science is kick-ass. If you agree and you love it as much as I do, why don't you head on over to Patreon where you can pledge a couple bucks per video to support this show and keep these episodes rolling out. Like these amazing patrons. Y'all freaking rock. Don't drink the Kool-Aid.
If we take something like any fiction, in any holy book, in any other fiction, and destroyed it, okay, in 1,000 years' time, that wouldn't come back just as it was. Whereas if we took every science book, right, and every fact, and destroyed them all, in 1,000 years, they'd all be back, because all the same tests would be the same result.